I got a big old pile of lumber here. I got some walnut, I got some maple, perfect to make butcher blocks and cutting boards. So we're gonna make a big old butcher block countertop. Stay tuned. Hey, if you get a chance, like and subscribe.
In this build, I ripped a bunch of walnut, various widths, and some maple, various widths. And here you see I'm using a little wedge because I don't have a riving knife, and that caused it to just, bind up a little bit. This is a little secret that I use every once in a while when you're using solid oak. And I did this random layout pattern of the top I was going to build. And put it on the fancy schmancy glue rack that I made. So these bars really help keep the surface flat. Put it even on one end, clamped it down tight. And a little love tap just to kind of make things smooth.
So this fancy glue clamp that I made, it's only got a 28-inch capacity, which is fine if you're just doing a 24-inch countertop. But it happens to be I'm making a 39-inch wide butcher block top, so I'm gonna have to do this in 2 layups.
So this next 15-minute process is going to take about, 30 seconds. This is the magic of video. Then I laid out the bar clamps and glued the 2 big pieces together. It's important when you're doing wide pieces like this that you put some clamps on top as well, because when you can cinch it just on the bottom, it's going to bow a little bit. Here you see that I'm checking to make sure all my joints are tight. Then I'm going to come back with this clamp here in the center. That's to get that bow to come down. I did a visual inspection and saw that it still wasn't down enough, so I used this clamp to help me out. And then when it was dry, I cut the ends off. This is why you build your CNC table top height the same as your table saw. And since I don't have that big gigantic wide belt sander, I used my surfacing bit and surfaced it all flat. I literally took 2 1/100ths of an inch each pass, and it took multiple passes, probably half a day to surface both sides. Here you're going to hear the sound. This is at real time, and you can tell when it starts taking some off. It's not taking off till right about now. So here I went 90 degrees just to make sure I didn't have any ruts, taking off 2 1/100ths each pass. I wish I had a fancy track saw, but I don't, so I put a real good fine-tooth blade on my skill saw and took multiple passes to cut the ends off to make it nice and flush. And we're going to take the waste and flip it up there and kind of get a little waterfall effect. So instead of making this an actual 3 inches thick, I just build up the edges with some glue and a bunch of clamps. I'd rather clean glue than scrape it. And here it is all clamped. So when you fold this up, you almost get like a book match, grain matching pattern. And we'll just fold that up and glue it in place. This is what the other end looks like, and it's not quite as wide as the other piece, but it still worked, and you can't even tell that it's not actually 3 inches thick. Here I am faking that I cut this piece of plywood in half, and then I ripped it to size on the table saw. Sucked out all the glue chips and put a bunch of glue inside. I gotta find some other music. First I put a sheet of 1/2 inch down and then screwed it a bunch all the way around to hold it down. Added a bunch more glue and put a sheet of 3/4 and screwed it down. I don't know if you're keeping track how thick this thing is, but it's 3 inches and it's really heavy. I love my CNC. I used to do all this stuff by hand, and since I actually made my own CNC, I guess I'm still doing this by hand because my hand created the CNC. But this makes it so exact, flushes up the ends, and it's going to come around this corner and just make a nice radius profile right there. Clean, smooth, and accurate. Then some manual round over with a hand router. And I always go backwards around these corners and do what you call a climb cut so I don't get any blowout on my end grain, and then just route it all the way around. And then I get to sand. Oh, and then I get to sand. Did I mention that I get to sand? And sand. Until finally, I can sand the top. I go by with a pencil and I mark where I need to sand, because sometimes as you're getting older your eyesight gets a little bad on you. So then I come back and I sand the pencil marks. Then I fill the voids with some epoxy resin. Here's a little trick. When you get bubbles, just flash it one time with the torch and it pops those bubbles right now. Oh, and then when it's dry you get to sand. That's what it looks like when it's done. So to finish things up, I got to sand. This time I'm using some really good quality 150 grit just to make it a little smoother. The first grits we used were 80. And then, oh, guess what? I get to come back and I sand by hand. But this ensures a really good profile on the edges, maintains the radius that I used when I routed the edge. There it is. They look beautiful, but it doesn't look as good until you start putting some oil on it. And it took in the oil. I put every bit of 2 heavy coats, and it was dry by the time we took it over to the other old guy's house. And I let him install it on his countertop. And here she is when she's all finished. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Give us a like and subscribe, and watch all you can.